preacher man stood there in the pulpit, the church house that was empty almost.
Thank you for joining us for the Ironmen, Men of the Second Mile podcast. I hope you're enjoying the testimonies of these men of God who've run a good race. May their testimonies be an encouragement and an inspiration to us all. Welcome to the Ironmen, Men of the Second Mile podcast, where we are continuing with an interview with Pastor Randy Bell, who has many years of pastoral experience. If you listen to the previous episodes, you can pick up on some of his personal testimony. At this time, I'd like to ask Pastor Bell if you would share with us a little bit about your dad and any of the men that have influenced your ministry over the years.
Amen. Are we not influenced by our mentors?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's people in everybody's life that's sort of directed. My dad, of course, being raised in a pastor's home.
Yes.
And I found out my grandfather, Lawrence Thomas Bell, was a preacher even though he couldn't read.
Wow.
I was preaching revival there in Catoosa County at Ebenezer Baptist Church in the 80s or low 90s. And an older gentleman came up to me and said, Brother Randy, your uncle, my Uncle Luther, used to pastor there.
Wow.
And my grandfather would go to church with him, and he asked him to preach one night.
Wow.
And so LT got up, my grandfather, which he died before I knew him.
Okay.
And he asked a guy, he said, one of the men in church, turn to Matthew, whatever chapter, and the guy read it, and he said, no, that's not it. He said, go just a little bit further in the Scripture. He went further in the Scripture and got the chapter and verse he wanted, and he preached that night. Well,
wow.
Granny Bell, Granny Miller, Carrie Miller Bell, she could read, and they were up from up in Tennessee. The Ringo Ottawa Road up there is Crossroads Baptist Church.
Okay.
And they went to church there. That's where the Miller family went to church.
All right.
And Dad told me one time, because we lived up near there, Dad told me one time, said, your grandmother cried that she couldn't go to church. They were coming by buckboard, mule and wagon, and they came to the little branch there, but it's flooded. And they couldn't, in the church, you could see the church from there, and said they had to turn around, and said Carrie started crying because she didn't get to go to church.
She was not happy.
But she was a sweet lady. I knew her. She lived with us when I was just a child.
Okay.
My dad, my grandfather, LT, he passed away pretty close to the Great Depression.
Okay.
And so my dad was left with his mother and his younger sister at home in a sharecropper's home to make a living for himself and them. Mm-hmm. And it became a very difficult time. He was in, I think, the 7th or 8th grade that time, and he had to drop out of school. But my dad could read, he could write, and he was very, very quick with figures.
Right.
And so he had a very intelligent mind. Someone at Pleasant Valley Baptist Church went over in those ridges and started evangelizing, and the Bell family went to church, and they got saved. And LT's daddy, my great-grandfather, Daniel Bell, Daniel was a Methodist preacher there in Roswell, Georgia. And he was also a cooper, which by trade is a barrel maker. And he made barrels. And he made the small kegs and worked with the Coca-Cola company.
Oh, my goodness.
When they first came out in Atlanta, and they would fill the kegs full of Coca-Cola, and he would deliver them. And then the barrels that were damaged, he'd bring them home. And Dad said one time they made the trip by buckboard from Roswell, Georgia, all the way to Catoosa County, Ringo, to Dad's house, and brought barrels that had Coca-Cola syrup in the bottom. And they took them all down to the spring, and they had Coca-Cola that day. It didn't cost them anything. It wasn't carbonated,
right,
of course. Then his Daniel Bell's dad was Francis Ashbury Bell, who was named after the first Methodist bishop
Right.
in the colonies.
Yes.
Now, in those days, Pastor, the Wesley brothers would not ordain a man unless he was already fasting one day a week.
Wow.
And so they're very, very, very strict. Dad told me he visited his grandfather, Daniel Bell, and said for breakfast one morning, his grandmother was fixing breakfast, and his grandfather was on the end of the table, had his Bible and had a songbook. And he would read some verses, and then he'd sing a verse of song. And Daddy always thought that he was going to have a funeral that day, because in those days the preacher did the singing
Did
and the preaching.
Wow.
And Dad, when my grandfather died, they were still living over in the ridges, right west of Pleasant Valley Baptist Church. And one Monday, it started raining. It rained and rained and rained, and the road became really impassable. And I mean, on Wednesday night, it was a deluge. It just poured down. And about 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, my dad started getting ready for church. And Granny Bell, Carrie, said, John, you're not going to church tonight, are you? Said, ain't nobody will be there. They can't even get there. The roads are so bad. Are you going to church? And my dad said, yeah, I'm going over there.
Wow.
And it was about a 1.5 mile walk. You couldn't walk in the road because it was so muddy and full of water. But all alongside every road in those days, there was a path over on the left or right side that you walked beside the fence. He said, I got to the church. It was just pouring. He had a hat on, overcoat. It was just all soaking wet.
Right.
And it was still raining. He got up on the porch of the church. The door, of course, was not locked.
Right.
No one locked churches in the 30s. And he looked down the road towards Ringo and saw lights bouncing up and down. And he thought, well, maybe that's the pastor's car. And sure enough, it was. And he pulled in the driveway there at Pleasant Valley Baptist Church. And when they got there, they opened up. There was another man. The pastor had picked up another man there in Ringo. And he heard the pastor say, I told you if anybody'd be here, John Bell would be here. And so Daddy was very dedicated.
Reputation testimony.
Yeah, very dedicated to the Lord. And so they greeted each other on the porch. They went inside, lit a coal oil lamp, and they took prayer requests.
Wow.
Had prayer, and they shook hands and left. And the devil, he remembered his mama's voice that nobody's going to be there.
Right.
And the devil came to him and said, it's all in vain. What you've done tonight, nothing happened.
Yeah.
No, there wasn't no singing, wasn't no preaching. So it was all in vain, all in vain. And said by the time I watched them pull out and bounce down the road and leave, then I started my walk home. And as I walked home, the devil convinced me it was all in vain.
Wow.
And so I got home, hung up my coat, my hat, took my clothes off, got my pajamas on, went to bed, and forgot about it. But then you fast forward to World War II.
Right.
Which was about 4 or 5 years later.
Right.
He got drafted in the U.S. Army, went to El Paso, Texas, became a medical technician, we'd call a medic.
Right.
And he was assigned to the 101st Airborne Unit.
Really?
And they were in a MASH unit, Mobile Ambulatory Surgical Hospital tent.
Right.
And so they followed wherever the 101st Airborne went and followed them into battle. And one afternoon, the doctor, who was captain, I guess, the doctor came to my dad and a couple other men working as medics there, said to pack everything you got in your duffel bag. We're pulling out when it gets dark. And we're going towards the battlefront.
Oh, man.
And said when they got in the truck, he got in the back of the truck, put his duffel bag between his legs, which was a common place soldiers would put it. You could look off in the distance and you could see light. They were shelling.
Explosions.
And that was the
Bombing.
front. And so they started heading that way. Lights were off. They had little blue lights on the truck. And he said as soon as the truck pulled out, I put my head over my duffel bag and I went to sleep. And I slept. Somewhere in the night, the front truck, and Dad was in the second truck, the front truck hit the bumper of the truck in front, and it woke him up. And when it woke him up, shells were flying over their head.
Oh, man.
Instead of throwing mud all over the truck, it was that close.
Oh, my God.
And said just one after another.
Oh.
The Germans were trying to just get the back of the battlefield covered so nobody else would come. Well, he said, soon as the truck started up, I put my head on and went back to sleep. Next thing I know, our captain, the surgeon, the doctor, was hollering, "Get up, Bell, get up, get up," and woke everybody up, woke my dad up. And when he woke up, the guy across from him said, "Bell, how did you sleep through all that fire?"
Oh, my God.
Said, "We were bombarded. And there was a time or two, it landed right near the truck, but fortunately, it dug in the mud and just threw mud all over us." So you slept through the whole thing.
Wow.
And they finally pulled into a French pasture.
Right.
And the captain said, "Look, they're going to be bringing the wounded here real soon. We're going to set up the tent, but first, y'all go down to those woods and relieve yourself. And then come back up, and we're going to set up the tent, and we're going to get things ready because they're going to be bringing people from the battlefield in here." Dad said, "I went down there and used the restroom, and then I saw a pile of rocks." He said, "I decided I'd pray." And he said, "I asked God, I said, God, why did you let me sleep through one of the worst battles
Right.
that our unit has ever seen?" And God said, "You remember that Wednesday night when you went to church and you thought it all was in vain?" Said, "I saw every bit of that."
Wow.
And so he learned to trust God
Yeah.
Yes.
and relied on God. He
Wow.
he told that story several times in some of his sermons, preaching
My goodness.
when he felt led to do so. And the preachers would gather there at Pleasant Valley, the young preachers, before the service, and meet at the altar, but they wouldn't pray at the altar. Then they would go out separately because there's woods all around there at that time,
Right.
and had their own prayer place. And Dad's was near a sinkhole on the right side of the church. Come out of the church and go in back in the woods, and there was a path that he had made by walking back there.
Right.
And every time walking back there, he'd pick up a rock, and he had, in essence, a rock holder back there.
Yes.
He had a prayer place. We lived there on the Georgia-Tennessee state line, on there in Rabbit Valley. The locals would call it Pleasant Valley, Highway 151 North. And he would go over into the barbed wire fence and go across from Mr. Bryson's property down there to a little branch, and there was a rock that he prayed at.
Yes.
That was his prayer place. Mother got cancer, and Mary and I had gotten married just a few years after she got cancer.
Okay.
And Dad told the story that one Saturday morning, Mother was real sick. She had a spit cup beside her in the bed, and she had esophageal cancer,
Oh.
which they had no way of fixing in those days. They gave you radiation
Right.
and didn't have much chemotherapy in those days that was effective. And so the radiation destroyed all the enzymes, the bacteria, good bacteria in her stomach.
Right.
And she couldn't digest food. And she was throwing up that Saturday morning. And Dad tried to comfort her and help her, and he told her he's going to go pray. He went down to the rock altar, and he said, "I started praying for her health,
Yeah.
and praying for her to be well." And said, I'd often pray with my eyes open, and often looking up to God and praying.
Right.
And said, I noticed on the corner of my eye a little whirlwind on the path
Yeah.
right there near where I was at.
Yeah.
And I stopped and I looked at it, and it moved towards the house up the path. Then it stopped. He said, I got up. When I started to take a step, it would move. And it trailed it in front of him. It trailed him all the way up. And he said, when I got to the barbed wire fence, said, Randy, I heard your mama singing, when the roll is called up yonder, I'll be there. She'd gotten up. She'd been well. She got up well enough and got to the kitchen sink. And the windows there, two windows, she was washing the dishes
Oh, my.
and singing to the Lord. And I asked Daddy about it. I said, you know, sometimes God's ways don't seem right.
Right.
My mother was a holy woman.
Yes.
She got her younger brother who played the guitar, Uncle Clovis, my Uncle Clovis, and my Aunt Tennessee, your younger sister, and they formed a quartet.
Wow.
And Mama formed it. Mama got saved in the public schools. A preacher had come and preached every day that week before, and everybody got saved but her.
Wow.
And on Monday, the Sunday school, the public school teacher, one room schoolhouse,
Right.
came to her and said, Frida, you didn't get saved last week. Would you like to be saved? And my mama said, I've thought about that all weekend,
Wow.
and I do. And she got saved.
Wow.
Amen.
Well, my grandfather had a run-in with a Baptist preacher down there. He came to my grandfather's home and made some accusations, and my grandfather didn't like that preacher. He didn't handle the situation right, for sure, what I've heard.
Sure.
I had a funeral at Love Funeral Home in Dalton, Georgia,
Oh, wow.
for my Uncle Clint, Tennessee's husband.
Okay.
And an older lady came to me and told me this story. She said, Randy, you don't know much about your grandfather and your grandmother. I said, no, but I understand that his last days he started going to church.
Right.
And he wrote that little article about the Bible that I put in the Yoke of Christ.
Yes.
That's an astounding little...
This was Frida. This was your mom's dad.
That's my mom's dad. Well, come Sunday, my mom got up. Nobody else is going to church.
Right.
My mom got up, and it was about a mile away walking. Doug Galp Baptist Church was back over
Yes.
different where it is now.
Okay.
And
Location.
she put her best clothes on.
Wow.
She cleaned up, and grandfather said, "Where are you going?" She said, "Well, I got saved, Daddy, and I'm supposed to go to church."
Oh, my.
Grandfather said, "You're not going to church."
Oh.
She said, "But Daddy, listen, I have to obey God before I obey you."
Wow.
She'd already figured that out,
done
reading her Bible. Well, he grabbed her and whipped her. She jerked away, went out in the yard, and he beat her. She was lying in the ditch.
Oh, my
He got his
goodness.
belt and put stripes on her back,
Yeah.
tore her dress. I think my grandmother, Granny Bird, she and probably my mother's twin brother probably pulled grandfather off of her. She developed a fever, put her in the bed. She couldn't get out of the bed for about 3 days.
Oh, my goodness.
They fed her in the bed,
Wow.
just soup and stuff. And Granny Bird, she, worked on her wounds and tried to heal her.
Yes.
This is what the lady at Love Funeral Home told me.
Right.
Said then Saturday she's sitting up and doing better.
Okay.
And then Sunday she got up. Mother had mended her dress. She got up, put her dress on, and went to breakfast. And Grandfather didn't say a word this time.
Yeah.
She ate breakfast, got her little Bible, and she went out the door and walked to church.
Wow.
Wow.
So Mother was a dedicated lady, holy
Yes.
woman.
Yes. Wow.
So
What faith.
they were singing that trio she had. They were
Yes.
singing in a revival at Pleasant Valley
Pleasant
Baptist
Valley.
Church. My dad was a young preacher on the front row.
My
And
goodness.
there she and her sister and her brother with a guitar were singing gospel songs.
Wow.
And my dad got to meet her in church.
I never knew that. So say it again for me. It was her and Tennessee
Tennessee and Clovis.
and Clovis
Uncle Clovis.
singing and playing guitar. And
Yeah,
singing.
Clovis could play the guitar.
Wow.
And they practiced at home, I understand.
Yeah.
And so they met there, and then Dad started dating her and got,
Yes.
they didn't have a telephone. They didn't even have electricity down in Rocky Face
Right.
where my grandparents were at.
Really?
We would go down there in the summer, and it was exciting. No electricity,
Yes. Yes.
no lights. You had to turn on the lamp and light it with a
Yes,
match.
light the lamp.
And but grandfather got mellowed, and that article he wrote about the Bible and that
Right.
yoke,
Yes.
the Yoke of Christ book, I use it when I preach around.
Right.
That thing is powerful.
Wow.
and it has in there about the Bible. The Bible doesn't require salary.
Oh, wow, that's great.
That's a slam on that pastor.
Yeah, that old preacher. Yeah, he was happy about that.
Yeah. So Dad told a lot of experiences when he was in the Army.
Right.
But we always had there at the house a time of prayer there in what we call the sitting room before we went to bed.
Yes.
And he was always steadfast. And he preached and taught doctrine. I learned most of my doctrine from him.
Yes.
The basics of the Bible. Then I had a pastor, Brother Bud Wicks, W-I-X.
Yes.
Was at Camp Creek Baptist Church. And he got me out and got me knocking on doors. And we knocked on doors there at Welcome Hill. I remember Larry Hollifield and I,
Right.
one Sunday afternoon, we went to every house up there where Welcome Hill Baptist Church was.
Right.
And we got to the last house, and this old guy says, "You boys are doing this neighborhood a bad service." Larry, I was quieter. Larry spoke up and said, "How's that?" I said, "Well, you're making liars out of every one of them. They're promising you they're coming to church. They're not going to come."
That's great. Well, he probably was not wrong, was he? That's hilarious.
And but we invited everybody in that community to come to church.
Right.
I'll tell you something interesting happened. The city of Ringo had passed a noise ordinance. And in those days, people would get a microphone, big microphone, latch it top of their car, and get a speaker, big horn speaker,
Yes.
top of their car, and they'd go ride through the streets of Ringo preaching.
Right.
Oh, wow.
And Daddy said he'd ride with some guys, and they'd hand him the microphone, and he'd
preach a little
start
while.
preaching. Well, the city council passed an ordinance that you couldn't do that anymore. Noise ordinance. Got some complaints from
Sure.
a few sinners.
Yes. Yes.
And so Daddy, the Welcome Hill Baptist Church was outside the city limits of Ringo. And so Dad went down to the church that one Saturday morning to visit a few folks. And here's a guy with his car with a big horn on top. And Dad said, "What's wrong? What's going on?" He said, "Well, the city won't allow us to go inside the city limits anymore." Daddy said, "Let's go up here to this neighbor's house. I want you to back your car up to the mountain and point your horn towards Ringo."
Wow. He done had
And they
that
sat
figured
there and preached.
Oh.
And
Echoed across
the
that
next
valley.
day, one of the members who lived in Ringo
Yeah.
said, "Brother John, where were y'all at?" Said, "I heard you so clear."
Wow.
And said the police were riding up down the
Trying to
street
find you.
trying
Oh.
to find you. And said the sound came straight down from heaven.
Wow.
Think behind that mountain.
That mountain
big
carrying
echo.
it.
Yes.
It went up and come
Carrying
down.
that right down in that valley. If you're enjoying the Iron Men Men of the Second Mile podcast, please give us a follow on Spotify or a subscribe on the YouTube channel. Both of those actions will help us drive this into the public forum. Your comments can make a big difference, and also the feedback you give us will help us improve in the days ahead. We appreciate you and hope you'll continue to listen to the Iron Men Men of the Second Mile podcast.